Hi. I'm here for Friends on Film.
Oh, yes, you and the other boy have the private booth you booked for this Valentine's Day.
Yeah, which one is it?
Oh, this one here. Follow me. Oh, hey, Ben. I got the setup ready. Oh, you two are recording? How lovely. I hope your fans like what they hear.
Wow, this is a bit of a tight squeeze.
Yeah, this is not the most practical place to record, but hey, it's enough for now.
Do you have the theme ready?
Yeah, already covered. Hello there, all you lovely people. This is for Benjamin and Michael, who are in their private booth tonight. I hope you two enjoy this song as much as you two will enjoy each other. Aw, that's sweet of them.
Michael, I don't think this place is for recording. Hello, and welcome to Friends on Film, the movie podcast where two friends, I want to emphasize that, talk about their favorite thing in the world, movies. I'm Ben, and joining me today is, of course, Michael. Michael, how are you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing all right. Just got off work not too long ago. The traffic in here was kind of crazy. That car that nearly hit us.
I'm so glad I've got my reflexes upped up since, we'll cover a specific car accident we were in once we get to a certain episode.
Oh, man.
But for today's episode, you know what? Valentine's Day is all about, expressing how you feel from the heart. And today we're talking about, I didn't prepare a script. I'm 100% ad-libbing because guess what? I'm speaking from the heart today.
All right. Well, with all that out of the way,
What's this?
well, I asked the hostess what we can do to help set the mood, and she said this really helps. She also said to read this to help us out, whatever that means. Let's get down to business, you and I, as the projector starts rolling and the movie covers our noise as we... And I shove it up your... And then you go for the... And all the...
Okay. This is our favorite romances.
Alrighty then, so for our favorite movie couples, there's like so many to go down the list of.
And that's not even counting Disney.
We have a couple like people on here on the list, so and there are a couple honorable mentions that I wish I could throw out there, but I haven't seen all these movies, but I've seen clips of these movies.
If I had to list two right now at this very moment, I would have to say Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet's characters. I haven't seen this movie in a while, from Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Just like, I know they're not quote unquote technically a couple by the end of the movie, but it's still a couple we watch in the movie as they develop their relationship and we see the ins and outs. And the second, we were just talking about this, if we had to go superhero-wise, Captain America, Steve Rogers, and Peggy Carter. That's all we'll say about that because, man, they are couple goals.
But getting now down to our list, who would you say is your first couple you want to talk about?
Okay, so if we're doing this like five, like going up to like number one being top tier, all-time favorites and all that. So this was interesting because I almost had these folks at number one, but then I was like, nah, that's just shock. Let's put these folks in like an appropriate spot, and then it wound up being number five, which would be Mickey and Mallory Malroy, I believe, from Natural Born Killers. Lost the title of the movie there. I almost said Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind again.
Yeah, definitely not. I actually have never seen Natural Born Killers.
So if I had to explain it just very briefly, are you aware of the premise?
Yes, I'm aware of the premise.
Well, so for our viewers, if I had to really break it in a nutshell without having to spoil too much, they are essentially the ultraviolet 90s Bonnie and Clyde. Like, they really go to town with what they do and who they meet in the movie. But at the same time, the reason why they're on here because they are entertaining to watch because they are such a toxic couple. It's like watching Harley Quinn and the Joker. Like, I could have had them on here, but that's cheating in my view. And I know a lot of people who know me are going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, you're just cheating. So this is the ultimate chaotic, fun couple that you definitely don't want your kids to turn out to be. But they are just so fun to watch because, well, let's be real. Sometimes we wish we could do some of these things too, because that was somewhat the mindset behind Bonnie and Clyde when I saw it, and that was very much the mindset behind the classmates I saw it with when I was in college.
It's that chaotic thing that we all think we want, like when we're teenagers.
Yeah,
We're all like, oh, this chaos would be fun, and everything like this would be fun. And as we're getting older, we realize, oh, why that's not healthy, and why that doesn't work out.
yeah.
But you would say that was more like, it's more like the fantasy of like this Bonnie and Clyde power couple.
Yeah, they are. I mean, Bonnie and Clyde would also be cliche to put on here. And look, here's the thing.
Well, because they were real. I know Natural Born Killers is based on real life people, but not the actual people. If I'm correct.
No,
on that.
I don't believe so. I believe Tarantino, who wrote the script. Okay, Oliver Stone is the director, and Tarantino wrote the script. I think this is probably I think this is the first instance where I've seen a movie that was written by Tarantino, but it also wasn't directed by him. But the fact that a different director who's just as good, if I'm being honest, just captured like the craziness of Tarantino, because there is a nasty, a nasty sitcom sequence that's like, you know, where all the really gross stuff is played up for laughs, and Mallory's Mallory's father, who's played to gratuitous perfection by Rodney Dangerfield, just elevates. Tarantino really took from television, and he just decided to make his little introduction to our character twist with sitcoms. I mean, what more can you want? It's Tarantino.
But yeah, I do think I can see like that's kind of like the age of like people are like, oh, that would be it, and we figure out later on that's not the couple you actually want to be. But they are so fun and entertaining to watch. It is interesting.
It's not, I won't say a spectrum, but it's that moment where you're like, yeah, you're mature enough to be like, yeah, that's not the mindset you should carry on going on through life. But man, wasn't that fun looking back on it? It's just, it's like GTA almost. It's that fun rush of chaos and violence. But we're mature enough. It's make believe, and these people are fun. But Mom, Dad, thank God I didn't turn out like any of these folks.
My number 5, I wanted to go with who is the most classical romantic couple you can throw in there.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
And I think it was kind of the end of this period of like the this insanely hyper romance before we went into the realistic. And for me, that was Wesley and Buttercup from The Princess Bride.
I mean, talk about the ultimate Disney couple that's not even a Disney couple. And the way I see it somewhat.
Yeah, what I think is so sweet about Wesley and Buttercup is you can tell they are infatuated with one another, but in a way that feels earned and respectful. What I really love about this couple is it's what you dream of romance and what you think of romance. And again, that's what the movie does. It's a fairy tale.
It's angelic, of course.
It's this over-the-top angelic belief, and the way, whenever they talk and quote one another, and you genuinely... As you wish. You just believe these two.
It comes off very honest, and thankfully it comes from... correct me if I'm wrong, Peter Falk's narration. He just has that grandfatherly touch to it that just makes you like, there's like, oh, I believe, yeah, I do believe when like when he says, as you wish, that means I love you. It's like, it comes off natural. It doesn't come off, and I don't mean to Star Wars fan, I don't mean to harken back on this particular writing, but George Lucas's writing where it's like, oh, I don't like sin or something unnatural. That's probably not the last time I'll bring that up, but I'll try not to do that too much, obviously.
But I think with Wesley and Buttercup, like with the way that Robin Wright and Carrie Elwes play it, when they stare into each other's eyes, you feel like it really does feel like fairy tale, this was destined romance, and you feel their love for one another.
And respect for one another.
Yeah, their love and respect for each other, the way that they lift each other up, the way that they constantly, their love is the goal.
And how they even carry themselves through the adventure, because it doesn't feel on the nose like bickering like you would see with most couples that were probably being written a lot back then, and probably to this day still be written. When they're discussing stuff, it just feels natural, because like when a question comes, it feels like a naturally earned question. Like when they're in the dark forest, and then you get that brilliantly timed moment, of course, where Buttercup asks Wesley, what about the rodents of unusual sizes? And then he says, the rodents of unusual sizes? Oh, I hardly doubt those exist. And then, we get attacked by one of those. it's just a good comedic sequence, but he still says it with respect, though. It's like, no, I don't believe.
He's
but
more
then,
like saying, "Hey, it's okay, honey. We're gonna be okay."
Yeah, it's kind of like how my dad would say, no, I don't believe that's gonna happen. But it was still with respect, like, no, I don't, like, rest assured.
It's like, I hear you, I see. It's funny because that one comedic moment is what's so great about that couple. Is like, I see you, I hear you, and I'm assuring you.
And then
all in one. Like, we always talk about the layers of comedy, but that's 3 layers of depth there also. Of like, the way that he's like not chuckling or laughing at her, it's I'm listening, I'm hearing what you're needing,
exactly,
and I'm assuring you right now. And then the second turns out it's true. What does he do? He immediately pulls out his sword and is right there to defend her. He's like, "Oh, you were right. I'm not going to be like, oh no, or be upset that she was right." He's going to be like, "Oh, you were right. So let's solve this problem together."
Yeah. And this guy is out of commission pretty much afterwards throughout the rest of the movie. They're out of commission with each other essentially. So
until they get back and we think they had the wedding, and then they have the fairy tale loophole that proves it, and it's just such a brilliant written movie. But I think Wesley and Buttercup, in just terms of like over the top fairy tale romance, you don't get better. I really don't. I think you could go harken back to some of the Disney classics and everything.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the problem with Disney classics is we don't spend a lot of time with those couples to make us believe that they're couples. Versus with Wesley and Buttercup, sure, it's like a love at first sight, instant attraction to one another. But we spend so much time with them that we're like, no, I 1000% believe you were in love.
And what's ironic is, and obviously we're not trying to say Disney is weak by any chance.
Oh yeah.
But what makes that ironic is Disney also specializes in the fairy tale, but in their defense, actually, you know what? Now, I don't even want to say they're making movies for children. It's like, well, Princess Bride is viewed by children, but also viewed by adults. So yeah, we're at a bit of an impasse.
Well,
now.
I think what you can also look at is why Wesley and Buttercup, I think, are the blueprint for fairy tale couples. Was this movie came out in the 70s, I believe?
80s, early 80s, I want to say.
Because after that was like we get the Disney Renaissance. It would not surprise me for a lot of Disney fairy tales if they don't look back to at least something that was connected to Buttercup and Wesley for how do we write this love at first sight? Because Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, and a lot of the stuff, even if they have like love that grows over time, the instant attraction, they really go with a Wesley Buttercup situation.
Exactly.
So I love them for that. So who is your 4th favorite?
Well, it's funny that we were talking about fairy tales, because now my 4th favorite, and this is also bottom of the list because there isn't too much to like describe in terms of screen time, but it's also because of what this director was able to capture with these folks. That would be The Beast and Eliza from The Shape of Water. A movie I will bring up maybe later in another episode at one point. But what I'm just going to say, to me, The Shape of Water, I know the movie's rated R, which is why I'm going to say, well, it is one of the biggest fairy tale movies for adults.
Oh, yeah.
Because whether or not some people's children have seen this, that's whatever. I don't know what to say to that. If you're a parent, then you know what I'm talking about. That happens later in the movie, which I won't bring up here. Me just watching as an adult and like knowing that just as someone who's been very lonely every now and then in my life and like just never know when I can connect with someone, and then you see something that's just very out there, and you know that's like life too. I've met folks that are really out there and I try to connect with, and it's just they form something very interesting, and I would say relatable too. I wouldn't say realistic, but it's like what we were saying about Princess Bride. It feels honest.
It feels believable.
Yeah, believable.
And I agree with you, and I can definitely see how The Beast and Eliza are on this list because they're 2 lonely creatures who find one another.
Yes.
And I think like anything like that's for adults in this movie, and which is the nudity and everything. Yeah. It's done very tastefully.
Yes.
And I think
and it is bestiality. Yes, I know, but
quote unquote bestiality, but it's also fairy tale.
It's tasteful, and even there are images where I was looking, I was like, man, that is a great shot. And it's them like hugging, like they're butt naked and they're hugging each other. It's like, my goodness, like,
you believe that these 2 are in love, and the way that the 2 connect on a deep, deep level. And it is one of the sweetest things, and I think a lot of that comes from Sally Hawkins' performance,
who has to be mute,
and then Doug Jones wearing that suit.
He's also gotta be silent. But the other thing is just when the beast is out of the water, they don't just do fish out of water hijinks. It's like, no, he very much acts like a beast, but it doesn't become, I shouldn't have snapped my water bottle, excuse me. It doesn't become about, oh, he's a monster and one-sided because of one incident. No, he literally kills a cat within maybe an hour after he's escaped, like the neighbor's cat. But then the neighbor's like, okay, he is a wild animal. He probably doesn't, he doesn't know these things are domesticated. So it doesn't. Thank you, Guillermo, for not going the like easy one-sided route. Or saying no, he's a monster because he killed this one thing. It's like, okay, he's a creature and he's learning.
Well, and I think that's what works is like they both understand each other. Yes. They see they look at each other and they see what are the obstacles that the world would see us face, and that's what they embrace with each other. And immediately they're like, oh, people see this as a downgrade. I'm going to see that as one thing that just makes you another part of you, and that's how I communicate with you. Exactly. And I think that's what makes The Shape of Water so wonderful, is just it's very tasteful and it's very powerful, and I agree, it's a really sweet film.
And Del Toro definitely winning of that Oscar, and whoever did the composing for
Alexandre Desplat.
Alexandre Desplat, damn man, you knocked it out of the park once again, especially bringing in some French vocalization just to add that little bit of sweetness for Del Toro, man.
My number 4, I wanted to go from classical to the best modern day romance, and this one has been thrown around so many times, but just because it works so well, and it's Lee and Evelyn Abbott from A Quiet Place.
Oh boy! What
I think, again, I love A Quiet Place. I think it's one of the most beautiful family dramas with horror movie elements in there.
Yeah.
But what makes them so powerful, again, it's about what do they say without needing to say it.
Yes.
And they're a married couple in real life, and the way that you can tell that Emily Blunt and John Krasinski really, you can tell they have talked about this scenes and how this goes through. They lost a kid in this movie, and when they lose the kid in this movie, and there's no blaming of each other, there's no fault of that. It's, I'm going to choose to continue to love you and continue to be with you.
Yeah.
And it's how do you love in the worst of it, in the survival scenario where you don't know if you're going to live to see the next day. And I think the two play it so believably because they are married in real life.
Yes.
And a lot of part about acting is you have to show a part of yourself to a crew of like over 200 and maybe a crowd of hopeful millions. And so to John Krasinski and Emily Blunt for showing that evidence of like, what if we had to live in a world where we lost a child and we're trying to let our children survive and we can't speak a word.
Exactly.
And they never blame one another. They're always lifting each other up. They're always resting. They're always there for one another. If they see one or the other is in danger, it is an instant go.
Yeah.
And they know each other so well in such a beautiful way. And it does lead to just a really powerful couple and a really powerful story. And even though if you've seen A Quiet Place Part 2, you know how the story has to continue. And how that continues, you really feel it throughout. And again, just because they're married in real life, and I can't thank them enough for allowing themselves to open up in that way. And how they both embrace this as people. I just think A Quiet Place has so many layers to it, but I really think Lee and Evelyn Abbott this is an extreme example. If you're thinking about getting married, I always say go to couples therapy before, if you've been engaged, make sure you guys are ready for that. And I would say look at Lee and Evelyn and say, are we ready to take on that with one another?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's the best way I can describe it.
That's really cool that we both had number 4 spots where our like romantic power couples don't speak.
And they're both in semi-horror films.
Exactly. It's like I guess that just shows you what, like, not to turn this into a horror discussion, that just shows you like just the reaches horror can take you, like in all different scenarios.
Well, and I think while I'm not the biggest horror fan, when you can show an honest, sweet couple in horror,
exactly,
it's how do you navigate the worst in the most terrifying situation.
And you're so right, because they navigate so much, because on top of that he has to keep his kids connected to him because one of them can't even hear for one, and he's losing, quote unquote, losing her in terms of like his relationship, which obviously they do. Well, I don't want to spoil anything, but eventually there's some mending, but it comes at probably the worst possible moments.
It
And
comes at a cost
at
that
a
is
very
really
huge
powerful.
cost. But at the same time, because we know how much he cared for them as a father, and we got a genuine performance from Krasinski, who is a father and a married man, as well as with his wife, and just how they were able to like raise these kids and handle themselves. It's just, yeah, it's like from all the different perspectives you can look. In the same way, I don't want to go back to my movie, The Shape of Water. It's like it's like what Del Toro somewhat did with one horror movie. He looked at different layers in like an interesting situation. Put it this way, it's not similar to yours, but this is what he did. He looked at the beast from the creature from the Black Lagoon, the original creature from the Black Lagoon. He looked at it from a different angle. Like he tried looking at it from his angle. And I was invited to a party to see like, what was that angle? And eventually I was like, oh, I see. Because some of my friends were like trying to figure it out, and they said, oh, he's admiring her, the woman who's swimming in the water. He's just like admiring from a distance, and he won't hurt her. And people are looking at me like I'm a perv. I'm like, what? I'm looking at it from the monster's perspective. So it's just, yeah. It's all like I said, layers of what you can look at from horror and love.
And I really think Lee and Evelyn are just, they're that example of when the worst comes to you, how do you stay together? How do you keep that going when you're not just surviving, but you need to stay thriving as a couple?
As a family. Nevertheless, because when you're gone, you still, it's not so much a legacy you want to leave behind. It's like it's that strength of the legacy that can move forward.
Absolutely.
That's what all families want at the end. They want us to move forward. They don't just want us to make an amazing legacy. Just move forward and make the best.
What is your number 3? Who would you say is your third best couple?
Oh yeah, not to have kept rambling. Number 3. To be honest, I don't usually get to talk about something like this with people, but this feels somewhat personal for me. I'm gonna say Roger and Jessica Rabbit.
Aww.
This was personal for me because I guess this is interesting. I saw this after I saw the movie Hook when I was 17, and I gotta be honest, I don't think I was the right age for that movie. Which is weird that I say that because a few days later I finally saw Roger Rabbit, and I didn't know if I would like it at all because I didn't like Hook. Something about that movie just really lifted up my spirits, and the more I keep watching it, and somehow, I don't know why, I guess it's because, like, again, this is a personal thing. I relate to Roger in that I'm a bit of a goofball myself, and like what I do with my version of comedy. Oh yeah, I very much like to do things when the timing is funny for myself, like what Roger does in the movie. I mean, come on, who doesn't like to do that every now and then? It's just, and I'm not okay. I haven't been in a relationship with anyone like Jessica, but I will say I've dated every now and then some people who like. They like me because I make them laugh, but that's not why they kept me around. Obviously, it became. Somehow, this is that whole thing I keep going back to, honesty, like something genuine about their relationship, even though they're not on screen for very long. Somehow, I don't know, maybe it's because it gave me hope that there is someone awesome for every goofball
But I
out
think
there.
it's so great about Jessica and Roger, like everyone is after Jessica, they want her.
Yeah, and she is sexualized really to the word.
What you see is this intentional femme fatale of the noir.
Oh, very, yeah.
Because when she's with Roger, we're all rolling our eyes like, really? But then when she says, well, he makes me laugh, and the way that when he's driving the car away, and she's like, my honey bunny was never good. Like, she doesn't say that, like, oh, he's so bad at this. She's like, oh, bless his heart, he is not that good at that, but he is good at other things. Like, she tells Eddie, he is a great lover. I will say that.
Oh, God.
And when she hits him with the frying pan, it's this goofy tumor world. She's like, I hit him with a frying pan and him in the trunk, so he could be safe. It makes perfect sense, but it is in the cartoon logic. Yeah. That's her cartoon logic coming through, which is even funnier.
Exactly.
And the way that when Roger is saving her, she is infatuated, but when she's saving Roger, they are always helping out one another. And you can tell that Roger and Jessica fully
respect and just not understand, but they just... No, it is respect, actually.
Respect and understand.
Understand, essentially, through each other in a very interesting, like, lens. Because, yeah, she's seen as serious and femme fatale, and Roger's this goofball. So, in some ways, it's like they're polar opposites. And I'm not trying to say, polar opposites are for everyone, but at the very least, someone who has... It's like someone who has a certain approach to life. Looking at someone who has a different approach to life. Like, if you have a fun, happy-go-lucky approach, you meet someone who's not a sourpuss, but kind of like... on their guard here and there, and just kind of, well, I won't say sexualized, but I'll just say the word on their guard.
Yeah.
It seems like this shouldn't work, but the fact that it does work, it just, in some ways, like I said, it gave me hope as a person who at the time wasn't dating a lot. Just hope that there's hope for someone. Like,
Ladies, Ben is single, in case you are wondering. It is Valentine's Day. I will also say the other thing that I really like about it, like when Roger thinks sees that he played patty cake,
yeah, and
he's at first torn up about it, but what does he do in that fit of jealousy? He writes her a love letter, and when he's asked about it, he says, "It's right. I just thought she was an innocent victim of circumstance." Wow. He is, of course, torn up about it, but what does he do? He reminds himself, this is why I love you.
Yeah.
This is why I adore you, and I guarantee you they would probably, in their zany way, would sit down and talk about it. What does that mean? How do they feel about it?
And now that you brought up in their zany way, I would very much would have liked to, maybe if there is a book or if they're short, I'd like to see that zany therapy session.
Oh, man. If it is a therapy session, it would be cool to see them go to couples therapy and see how those two react to one another.
Exactly.
But you can tell that, again, it's that love and respect for one another. They are trusting of one another. The second Roger comes in ready to hold up and taking on the weasels, Jessica is fully trusting him, and it's a circumstance that Roger was neither of them were expecting that takes him out, and she doesn't blame him for it. And when they're tied up about to die, they are fully like, we're in love with one another. We're both trying to survive this moment.
Her last words, like, Roger, if anything happens, I just want you to know I've always loved you. And he's like, even as he's looking at her, that little piece of animation where his smile just starts to develop as he's looking in those eyes is like, it's there.
It's the sweetest.
It's just very sweet,
and it's really, really good.
It couldn't match number 2, but we'll get to that in a moment.
Because my number 3 is also, it's a dark but zany couple as well.
Oh boy!
And it's in every list, and there's a reason why. Morticia and Gomez, specifically from the Barry Sonnenfeld Addams family.
I'm jealous that I didn't even think about those two, but in some ways, it almost ties into my choice. But let's not make it about me. It's about you.
I mean, with Morticia and Gomez, there's a great cinema therapy video talking about 7 tips for a healthy marriage from them. There is a reason these two love and adore one another. They build a life together. They build kids. They both encourage people to pursue their passions.
Yeah.
Another thing that I love is when you see, like, later on in the film when they lose their house, and Morticia goes to Gomez and she's like, honey, do you want to do this? And he's depressed. He's like, but this show will be on in a few hours.
Yeah.
She's not like, get up, you lazy bum, do this. She's like, oh, he's in a really bad place right now. Yeah. And she's the one who goes and tries to beg for the house back because she knows her husband's not in the right mental state. The other thing is when they encounter a problem, even though the doctor in the movie is evil, the second they see there's a problem and a challenge we're not overcoming, what do they immediately do? They go to a couples therapist that they believe is a couples therapist, and they sit and they are discussing with one another. And they never blame one another. They're always very passionate for one another, but they're always sitting down and checking in with one another. What do you want to do? What do you want to have? And while it's zany and goofy and so dark and so funny, you can tell that they really care and respect for one another. And if you're looking for a dark, twisted couple that you wish you could be like Morton Goats, it's not going to happen. That's never going to catch on. But Morticia and Gomez, I say you can't get better than those two who just love and respect each other.
I have a somewhat understanding of that love and respect because I have sadly not seen any of those Addams Family movies, the Barry Sonnenfeld ones. I didn't see the animated ones, which I heard I wasn't missing out on. But I did see, however, the Addams Family on Broadway and New York with Nathan Lane as Gomez.
Oh, you got to see that?
Yeah, back in 2010, I believe I was 15.
The amount of jealousy I am feeling right now.
Oh man, this is a curveball, y'all. This is the first time he is hearing this, and he is like lightly fuming. I can see like some steam.
I am lightly fuming, but I'm more just so excited for you that you got to see it. Because I also saw Nathan Lane later on in Broadway in a play he did, and but yes,
Gomez.
I know in the Broadway production because I listened to the soundtrack so many times. I know it's called a cast recording, but it is a track of sound, so it is a soundtrack. Broadway can have soundtracks and cast albums. Fight me. I love that there's a whole song where Gomez just dedicates it to Morticia.
Yes, Morticia. That was the moment where, even as when I was watching this, it wasn't the moment I was like, oh man, theater is really hitting me. It was a moment where I was like, man, this guy really loves his wife. This isn't just this. I mean, yes, it is a zany comedy, obviously, but it's got heart behind it. And then, okay, there is a part. Look, this is the Addams Family. there's a part in the play where she's about to commit suicide. Actually, no, it's the finale. She's about to commit suicide, and he goes there and he just pours his heart out for her, and like, okay, I know I tried to forcefully change everything, and I'm not even listening to you, but if you just give me a chance, I could be just as despicable and everything in all ways possible. Because look, it's the Addams Family.
Yeah. But what I love is that it's when she's almost on a breaking point, almost at that moment, and what does he do? He doesn't blame her for anything. He immediately says, hey, I see what I've done wrong. Exactly. I know this. I want to change. Let's talk about it.
He is aware of his flaws, even though let's be real, this is a family that lives on what society views as flawed. Like,
and that's what they love, and that's what Addams Family was based off of. Was the joke of what modern families wouldn't get into, which is funny that there's a loving mom and dad in there.
Exactly.
But what makes them so powerful is, like in every iteration that I'm glad they've gotten right, you can tell they understand one another, they respect one another, and they happily will go for it. Gomez, and again, this type of love doesn't work for everybody, because Gomez, at Dora's Mortician says it, and that's what she's into. I know couples where if they tried that, it would last 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Like, it's not so it's different for everybody. But what they do is they see what gets my partner going, what's their sweetness, and what's the thing that if they're down, what's the thing that helps them get back up.
Exactly.
And if they encounter a problem that they're both realize, and if you see a problem that you've encountered that you both don't have a solution to that gets unstuck that benefits both of you.
Exactly.
What do? You go and seek out professional help from an outside person who professionally deals with this and gets you back in there.
Yeah, and of course it all comes down to like communication and everything. But yeah, everything you just said, which is of course why, even though we look at them and be like, man, we shouldn't be that couple, but man,
actually you should be
that couple. That's all. That's the joke, y'all. Now,
so what's your number two?
Okay, so we're moving on to what people would probably want me to put in number one. At least people who grew up with this movie in the early 2000s, Shrek and Fiona. I mean, let's look at their arc. They are much like Morticia and Gomez in some ways that they're perfect because of their imperfections. I mean, they're ogres, and yes, I'm going back to fantasy fairy tales, but this was the well, not the first fairy tale movie to be like self-aware or like pull jokes at the fairy tale genre. Excuse me, let me take a sip of my water. It did very much draw attention and actually create a story. I'm sorry, it didn't draw attention. It created a story around those flaws in the fairy tale.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you just heard about this Lord Farquaad, as he was called. Yeah. Or Wad, yeah. You just heard about this guy and you're already like simping or pining for him, and then we're of course getting those amazing jokes of, oh, there are people like him that are in short supply. Well, there aren't too many people that think very highly of him. Yeah, all those great jokes from Eddie Murphy and that are dialed up in the second one. But okay, let's just jump ahead when Shrek and Fiona, who are, of course, we would see in a fairy tale as polar opposites, just somehow develop in just the most natural of natural ways. Because the writers were smart enough to see, hey, someone in this castle probably would have picked up on some of these survival skills. Oh, yeah, this ogre, even though he probably is lonely, he could probably feel things too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's something we've also seen in most stories, but it's just... And the thing about love, and I keep bringing this word up a lot, honesty, just like how honestly they're written. And I'm not just talking about the first movie here, y'all. I'm trying to keep it fast paced. Okay, so we get to the second movie. We're meeting the parents or the in-laws, and then we don't just get a hilarious scene at the dinner table. I mean, we do, but then we get a story about like, what do we change for those we love? And when we go too far in some areas, and of course it all boils down to communication, but hey, if we had proper communication, we wouldn't have an amazing sequel, obviously. Yeah, if you want to say something?
I think what you're bringing up, and I think to more to say simplify it
Yeah,
in a bit
simple.
easier way.
Yeah, I don't want to say talk about the third or fourth.
Within
movies,
the first Shrek, when they meet each other, and it's that believability. It's that as time goes along, they open up one another and they start seeing each other for who the person actually is versus who they're saying they're supposed to be.
Exactly.
And by embracing that at the end, they connect into "I see you, I know who you are."
Yes.
So in that second movie, it's now you're together, you're married. Now you're dealing with this fact of but
this is
supposed to happen, and it's how do you deal with that as a couple?
Yeah,
and it's dealing with that fear of what if I'm not right for them? Like,
and it's coming from your family. That's what the worst part.
Well, and this is what's great about Shrek in the second movie. All his fears stem from not being good enough for her because he thinks he's not good enough.
And they feel genuine, though. Those insecurities. Look, the guy goes through her diary when she was a kid and gets, like, really, not turned off, but he gets insecure at what she was writing about some dude who she never met.
And what does he try to do? He thinks, I have to change myself so I can be what everyone says I need to be for her.
And then he follows the king's advice, who of course is trying to get rid of him, but I won't go into that detail. But he goes to like all these lengths, but it's all coming from a genuine spot.
But then what do we love? And of course the ending of the film is Fiona and him coming to realize Fiona loves Shrek.
Exactly.
That's not what she doesn't love what her father wants Shrek to be.
Yes.
And that's what the family learns to embrace is that's who he is, and that's okay. And we're going to skip over the third movie because there's nothing of value to talk about.
I can't really talk about the fourth movie.
But Shrek Forever After, what did they do with the fourth one? He blows up at her, he breaks down, and the whole movie is just this long, complicated
a wonderful life.
It's this long, complicated way of saying, I messed up, how do I get back up there?
Yeah.
And that's that realization for the two of them. And I think that's really where the fourth movie shines. It's Shrek recognizing his flaws as an individual.
Yeah.
And even Fiona does, even though it's not called Fiona, so we don't see that full arc. That is what they're writing for her.
Yeah.
It's that coming to understand each other once more. But Shrek now is understanding this, of course, alternate universe Fiona, which is a lot like his version.
Yeah.
He's starting to see her as she is now. Because time has gone along, things have changed, and you're not the same person you were 10 years ago.
Exactly.
And that's what I think is so adult and human, and for lack of a better word, it's so adult in the fourth movie. It's them saying, how are we different now? How have we changed? And they didn't communicate that, and that's what led to the whole movie happening. But I think that's what makes Shrek and Fiona so powerful, is they start with, we figure out who we are, we love each other.
Exactly.
I don't think I gotta make myself better for who she's supposed to earn. And who she's supposed to be. Oh, wait, no, we're already perfect for one another. We just need to learn to trust ourselves. So, trust ourselves in who we are and trust that, because I know who you are. And then it's how do you age with that? How do you grow up with that? And it's such a mature way of telling a story. And I can see why this is definitely your number two, because, man, is it just such smart writing.
Just really smart, and the fact that we still look back at this couple as the ultimate power couple, and they're ogres. I mean, that's in conventional fairy tales. Well, guess what? Times are changing, y'all. We got talking donkeys that are talking about Bob Barker, and we got little cats that are in some... one movie that I never got to see, in a second movie, which I have the Blu-ray of, but have still yet to see, but I have not found the right people. But onwards to your movies.
My number two is also an animated couple that I think is just, all in all, this is probably the goal of how I want to be in a relationship. This is Astrid and Hiccup from the How to Train Your Dragon movies.
Oh my goodness.
What they're so great about is that, one, I don't think this couple really needs therapy.
No.
They are perfect right away. It's when they communicate instantly, hey, they without even needing to really say it with words, they know exactly what each other needs.
Yeah.
When they say, is this really what you want? Yes. Okay, how are we going to do it?
Yeah. They
trust each other in the combat and in the field. And whenever they're like goof around and poke fun at one another, it's never mean. If they're like in the second movie when they're playing out the scenarios and she's imitating his voice and he's joking around
That's not what I sound like.
Is that really what I sound like? And it's all done to goof around and have fun with it.
Exactly.
We also in the second movie after Toothless gets captured, and they say, Astrid is talking to Hiccup's mom. He's like, I don't know what to do, and she says, well, you got to find the thing that makes him happy and gets him back up. So what should you do? She says, come on, let's go find Toothless. Stop moping. We're gonna go find him because I know that's what's gonna make you happy.
Yeah.
And the way that they constantly are batting for one another, they're playing for one another. John Powell's score that
Mhm.
emphasizes their love theme is so powerful. If how I want to act in a relationship, it's like Astrid and Hiccup.
Yeah.
They are both completely independent people, but when they come together, they both know and respect and love one another.
Exactly.
And they're even when they have conflicts, it's all coming from a very healthy place, and they're so lovely.
And this isn't a couple where, thankfully, also because we haven't listed too many conventional couples as far as I've remember on this list, where it's like, oh yeah, Hiccup's the one that's doing all the work, and she needs to get saved, or she says I can take care of myself and needs to be saved. We're not doing that convention.
Mm-hmm.
No, these are well prepared folks. They communicate obviously, but they still, there's that respect.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever there is trouble, it's all the more we are all the more on board with them because we want them to make it out.
Oh yeah,
that's why we follow these folks, and that's why whenever, well, okay, without spoiling too much, but I was spoiled this sadly back when I worked at Alamo Drafthouse, and I actually still have not seen the third movie. But when I was working at Alamo Drafthouse, I did see the wedding sequence, and eventually, and when I heard the vocals, it reminded me of the vocals in God of War, and I just almost shed a tear right at that sequence. And because, like I said, that's what I felt genuinely happy, because they felt like a genuine couple I was rooting for. All those, everything you broke down. And a World of Dragons, of course, but I mean, who wouldn't want to be that couple?
What I love is that Astrid is also, when she wants to be the best because that's what she's wanting, it's not because, that's what society demands of her. She's that's what I want to be. And when she learns, these dragons need to be tamed. They don't need to be killed. And as soon as she learns that, she's like,
it's from
how can we learn that? And then she's like, well, how can I learn that? And she doesn't get mad at Hiccup for
upstaging her, which at first
she gets upset for upstaging her in different ways.
Yeah, it was.
She sees what he's doing, and then she's like, okay, I want to learn from you.
Opening her mind to something different, because even then, she's not written as, I don't mean to keep bringing this up. She was written as someone who, is trying to, develop and become more tough in her environment. She's not helpless or anything. But, yes, she does come from a place of, this is how I was raised. But wait, what's this guy doing?
And what I love, she doesn't lose her toughness.
No, she really doesn't.
Hiccup and her are always constantly just building each other up as their own independent people. Like, of course, Hiccup does get stronger just naturally. That's how it goes. But he grows so much in his mind and wisdom and how he learns to teach and train dragons. And Astrid continues to be this tough, awesome warrior. And it's never like, we need to forget that part about ourselves when we met. No, they're like, we're going to grow that other part. And they encourage one another in that beautiful way. Yeah. Again, if whoever I ever date, I want to be like Astrid and Hiccup. I always think, how would that go? And that's, in my opinion, one of the sweetest. But now it's time for the number ones.
Oh, boy.
Okay, what's your number one?
So this couple comes from a love story I saw in my teenage years when I wasn't crying at too many love stories, but this one legitimately made me cry. It is Jenny and Oliver from Love Story. And the reason I have them on here is because, to me, they are very much a realistic couple. Because, once again, wasn't dating too much, but I started seeing more and more what a couple quote unquote can and shouldn't be. Yeah. And to me, that it's the authenticity because that comes out from their performances from Ryan O'Neal and Ali McGraw, I believe that's her name, who are just beautiful in the movie together. Because maybe they were in love in real life when they were shooting this movie, and of course the score is amazing. But and when I say real, it's because it feels like they do legitimately go through life, and all the most biggest turmoils in that life just throws you so many of these curveballs, and sometimes you gotta make choices and adapt with that one person who says they love you, and they're gonna provide for you. And this is something that inspired me in some capacity, because Ollie essentially unfortunately, okay, so this is one of those stories. I did roll my eyes when I read this too, but I actually read the book after I saw this. So yeah, props to the movie for making me do that. This is one of those stories where it's not so much Romeo and Juliet or anything like that, but it's very much a rich boy meets a poor girl story, Titanic, I guess. And thankfully not too much on the nose like James Cameron's movie, nor is it overly long, 3 hours. No, this movie I believe was only an hour and 45 minutes, maybe 2 hours at most. I have it on Blu-ray. I know I'm going to watch it again at some point. But anyway, what was I getting at? Okay, so the boy's father, I guess, disowns him because he's dating this woman who doesn't quote unquote have promise. He's at not Harvard, I believe. Yeah, I believe he's at Harvard. Yeah, and she's going to Brown. Which I'm not saying that's anything at all to like look down on. But of course,
Mhm.
his family sees it that way, and it just so he's essentially disowned. So he has to start fending for himself, asking for scholarships. It's like I said, life will throw you a weird curveball at some point, something that's
Mhm.
out of your control and is complete bullshit. And then you just got to keep fighting and like working your way through. And the movie does a very great job displaying them just working through the hardships. Like there's just a scene. This scene doesn't need to be in the movie, but it still elevates the relationship because of the acting and how great it is. Ryan O'Neal's coming into a church and watching Ally McGraw, doing practicing her choir for her students because she's a teacher. She was going to be a musician, but she had because of all the complications in their life, she had to switch occupations.
Mhm.
He's there just watching her finish her choir lessons, and then she just walks over to him and says, "So what are you doing tomorrow morning?" And he says, "Sleeping." "What are you doing tomorrow morning?" "Sleeping." And then they're like, "Did you get a Christmas tree?" And then it doesn't need to be in the movie, and I know my acting isn't selling it, probably the audience, as I'm not an actor. I prefer being behind the camera directing people.
Mhm.
Anyways, it's just I can't emphasize enough the acting and just how genuine these folks are because again, life just throws them curveballs, and then the biggest one, well, terminal illness.
Ugh.
So without going into all the details, yes, that is my number one choice. That is the couple I like. I want to. That was the inspiration for the couple I know I want to be a part of. Like, if there's going to be hardships, I want to be that guy who can still be strong. I don't want to be the guy. Okay, put it this way: Oliver was very much the breadwinner because he's a lawyer at the end of the movie.
And it came out in the 70s,
Came out in
so
the
there
70s,
was
yeah.
a different societal standard.
Exactly.
At the time.
I don't want to be the guy who's the immediate breadwinner, but I want to be the guy who can still be strong for the family and like support it and all that way. I want to be that boyfriend, of course.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah. Speaking from the heart, y'all.
My number one, I just think overall, it's the couple that always makes us cry. It's
Oh.
Carl and Ellie in Up.
Oh my god. Why?
Why do I bring this up and for hurt us? I think what I love about this couple, it's the life that I think anybody with a married story wants.
There's going to be a similarity to what we're saying to what I did. Like, just
but
what,
I think
what we aspire, yeah.
But what I think is so sweet about Carl and Ellie, they take time with one another.
Yes.
They spend a lot of time with one another. They understand one another and how it goes. They grow with each other.
And the brilliance.
And when they have, I mean, of course, it's done in the brilliant 10-minute sequence of Giacchino's brilliant score and brilliant direction from Doctor.
What I was going to say is it's brilliant because it shows us their introduction as kids, so it's the introduction to their relationship, so it becomes more believable as to how they would become together, which is just...
And I find it funny that like basically the entire epilogue of that story is the rest of the movie, which is a very cool way to tell a movie. Yes. But what I think is so sweet is you see when they're whenever they hit trouble, like when they can't have a kid,
life throws a curveball.
What do? They're immediately there for one another, and they say, "Well, that we don't have that goal, so what should be our goal? Oh, we want to make it to Paradise Falls." Yeah, which becomes the catalyst for the rest of the film. And then, as you said, curveballs. But what do? They shrug, they break the jar over and over again when life keeps going, and they make plans with one another, and sometimes those plans don't work out. And Carl was too stubborn to see what Ellie had written for him, which was keep going.
Yeah, that's the heart gut puncher of the movie right there.
That because one there is so powerful.
Well, without going into too much details for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, we spent a good chunk of the time with Carl as a grumpy old man, which understandably so, the way, like how, like what was going on. Oh yeah. But he's also had Russell, and I'm not saying Russell annoyed him or anything, but it was just, he wasn't expecting Russell to come into his life, of course, to like make changes and then all of a sudden meet someone who he idolized and then became an enemy. Hey, life throws you curveballs like I keep bringing up. But it's then once he realized, I finally made it here, but somehow I feel empty. And then, okay, maybe memories of Ellie will make me happy again. Then he finds that knows like, hey, thank you for giving me an awesome life. Now, go have an awesome life for yourself. Yeah. Adventure, excuse me.
Yeah, the awesome adventure. And she says, because your story's not done yet.
Exactly.
And I think there is something just so poignant about that. First of all, I want there to be more big tentpole films that have older people that have old people and seniors as main characters.
Well, we kind of sort of got that with Everything Everywhere All at Once.
We did, and I think I do think we need more of that because let's be honest, our generation, like you and I work in grocery stores, we know how we can see old people and how we can do it. But I think because we do that by living in that life, we forget that they're human. And I think Up really emphasizes here's that human life that you didn't see.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it such a powerful story. And again, it's him doing everything for his wife that he thinks I have to do this for her, because he was too stubborn to turn the page.
Yeah, and it wasn't. And thankfully, Pete Docter, he's such a brilliant director. I think he should be a doctor in emotions. I mean, the dude did direct Inside Out, but
Soul.
Good God, this guy. Yeah, we could go on and on, like saying how amazing this guy is, and if he's listening to us, can you hire us? Anyways, but yes, I lost my train of thought there, but yes, everything nailed right on the head. Like these couples were these number ones. The way like the similarities we've had, it's because they power through it, not because we can do this, we're strong. It's because we care about each other, but we have to work with one another. That's commitment. That's a relationship right there.
What I think is also really, really powerful. Sorry, Teddy just actually snapped me, so that's who I was snapping. I wanted, because if you guys remember Teddy, she was on the first iteration of Friends on Film. And I think what's really sweet, like we're talking about our favorite movie romances, but communication, trust, all that stuff, that's also open for friendships. Again, we're friends on film.
Oh, yeah.
What can we learn from film is through relationships, not just romantic relationships, but what do we do as friends?
Exactly.
And I can tell you there are many times Ben and I communicate through memes, through jokes, through stories.
Yeah.
And movies really do help us communicate with one another about what we're going for and what we always do. And that was definitely similar with Teddy, and I know she's listening, so I'm going to make her cry.
Aww.
We really have known each other for a long time, and we communicate pretty much on the daily, just through, oftentimes we're just snapping each other, just sending photos, and I check on her, she checks in on me.
Yeah.
And I know that it's like I've always got her back, she's got mine. I know you've got my back, and I've got yours. And I think that's just one of the beautiful things about film is when we do see those couples and we do see these people, it shows us, and we're always going, well, that's film. That's unrealistic. And it's like,
that's cinema, bro.
And I think, that's cinema. I also think what it does.
It's a life experience. That's what's okay. I'm quoting Scorsese. It's a life experience. Like that's cinema right there for you.
Life experiences, and I think there's also something to say is what we also been saying is it's goals.
Yeah,
we want those goals, so we sit down and with people outside of film. Yeah. We say, how do we achieve that?
Exactly.
How do we get that? And I think
we're not there to make memes, y'all, or to make couple goal memes. Well, they are out there, but
the memes highlight just how fun
they come from. They come from a place of honesty too.
And I think that for me, I think couples are just. That's why I love looking at great movie couples, because they're a goal to reach, and it's beautiful.
Exactly.
Pardon me, gentlemen, but your time is up.
Oh, awesome! We just got done.
Oh, well, the wrinkled clothes make that obvious.
No, they're wrinkled because we've been sweating in this tiny booth for the last hour and...
Well, I have to clean it anyway for the next customers.
Well, not much happened here other than the talking.
Oh, I know. I hope the podcast episode comes out well.
What?
Yeah, Michael called us and said he needed a place to record for your movie podcast, and we had just the place for you two.
And we cannot thank you enough. This was so accommodating.
Amazing. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review on Yelp.
Yep, have a good night, guys.
You too. I need to go sleep.
Friends on Film is produced by Michael Andrew Dinan, T.M. Lin, and Benjamin Trevino. Written by Michael Andrew Dinan and Benjamin Trevino. Music by Jared Walker, and logo by Corbin Clymer.